Hey everyone, welcome into another edition of TTT here. Tonight I'm going to be tackling solo again. I'm going to be flying solo, but I'm going to be tackling something that you guys are probably going to be scratching your heads going, but you haven't done Joni Mitchell yet, and you haven't done this one, you haven't done that one. I'm trying to hit some spots, some special spots, put some highlights on some things that may have been either forgotten or interpreted a certain way because of the way that things turned out. So tonight I'm going to be dealing with Judy Collins, and you're saying Judy Collins, my golly, what is it about her? Well, I think to me, I'm going to be limiting my analysis to the Elektra years, the year she worked for Holtzman's label, 61 through 84. And my God, what a bunch of changes you're going to see in this time period. She starts off, as you all know, made of constant sorrow, folk music, almost angry protest stuff. And before too long, they quickly tried to shape her, and could be partially because of her looks, could be partially because of those sweet blue eyes. But they're trying to move. She grew up in Seattle, took a job in Denver, and worked for a while, and really got into some of the show tune stuff. And you can hear it later in there. They try to kind of move that in there, and they kind of throughout the period of time they move her through some of the pop stuff. You're going to hear Early in My Life and the records like that. They move her to that, but she's constantly being molded. And the thing that I don't like is it seems like even though the presentation nowadays has been the same, and again our analysis stops here in 1984 with the last record, Home Again, on Elektra Records, the last one she did. And I know she made the Amazing Grace record, which was a big deal after that. But I think that her career is a study in, is it reactive? Is it being shaped by a heavy-handed manager? But there's a lot of different things that she did, and some of it worked, and some of it didn't. And there are also some points that I think in the beginning parts of her career where it seemed like when she was trying to discover these things, and some of the records in the 60s and the 70s, that there was just an obvious, part of her style of singing that was not as pleasant as some of the other ones, and some of that stuff would show up in her own writing and some of her own stuff. But as she moved on out and moved through some of the pop stuff, moved through some of this, a kind of a mixture of that, and then into kind of the song singer, kind of not writer, really doing some people's other material. She did do some of her other. We have some of that we'll talk about. And then towards the end, it ended up being, hey, we're moving with the times like everybody else. And believe it or not, she ended up on her last record for Elektra, astonishingly being produced by Dave Gruisin, by the GRP crew, which is extremely strange given the fact that their relationship to jazz and that GRP kind of easy listening jazz. It's not really Kenny G stuff, but it's not really the stuff it's more simple jazz. Maybe you want to call it yacht rock jazz. But it's just interesting that she'd gotten to that point. And so what I'm going to do is to count down these records. There's actually 16 of these, so we're going to try to move through them pretty rapidly. I have an opinion about each one. I've spent some time here this last week. I was telling my wife, what are you doing while I'm listening to Judy Collins? And she's looking at me kind of sideways. But, Judy Collins is an important early singer, too. She did have some of that protest stuff there with her, but she kind of sweetens things out, smoothed over the edges, and so we'll talk about as she goes through here. But she's really had a good, solid reputation and sold records consistently throughout time, and as you'll find out along the way, I actually had some hits. I'm going to start off right away with her very last one, and I'm talking about 1984's Home Again. I talked about this Dave Gruisin production here. Only You, Sweetheart's on Parade, From Where I Stand. Home Again is a duet she does with T.G. Shepherd. It's a country kind of thing. Who says you can't go home again? I don't know, man. I just don't think the pairing of them works well. I don't know how this happened, and really, when you hear the sequential things, I mean, you can know that she ended up later on being produced by a couple producers, and we'll talk about this. But this is probably to me, the most lost. And this is, somebody trying to really sing things. It's really very little connection to original um, folk, if any at all. Really a lot of heavy synth type of music, and it's an 80s kind of a smooth jazz thing. And to me, it just doesn't work. Her voice doesn't work in that context. Again, Judy, when she sings in a certain Collins, when she sings in a certain register, to me is one of the best voices ever. And I'm going to point that out as I go forward here. I'm going to go to the next one here, and I think it's 1979's "Hard Times for Lovers." And this record to me is, kind of another one of these where you've really kind of nothing much left of her uh, integrity with this stuff. You get the half nude body. I guess that's the show off thing here. I think I've got a deal in here. I've got a lyric sleeve, I think. Let me see. But this is one that probably didn't do as well. She does a cover of Desperado, which is to me is just it shows and you've got a lot of these guys playing in these big ensembles and these big or things are orchestrated. Hard Times for Lovers, Marie. What a couple of these songs are hers, and she does The Promise from Ice Castles. It just doesn't work. Gary Klein. It just doesn't work. It doesn't sound like her. It doesn't sound like her identity. I think her voice, as far as the voice shape and stuff goes, she spends lots of her time trying to sound. I think uh, in some areas where I don't think it works as well. Personally, I'm just talking from my view. These are kind of hard. Some of these ones down here at the bottom are very different. And some of these, as I'm listening to these bunch, and I would say probably the bottom 4 or 5, there's probably more, a lot of this, in my own opinion, and I'm not trying to say good, bad, whatever, but I'm saying on the negative side than on the positive side, because a lot of times they're trying to fit her into a situation where they're trying something new. And this is an interesting one. My next one here, number 14, is 1963's Judy Collins 3. This is after she'd had 2 records out before, and this is really her first foray out of this. And I think the problem that I have more than this is her voice is in an incredible high register that is extremely irritating on some of these. She's singing some of these songs hardcore down, like the bells of Rhymney, Deportee. But then again, she does a ham-fisted take on Turn, Turn, Turn and Masters of War Dylan, which is just the most unconvincing thing. And I think this is really kind of the end of when she did the protest thing. Maybe on the early record, the first 1 or 2, the voice would come through with this. But this kind of sounds like somebody who knows they need to move on to something else. And this is the dead end. And this could be maybe the reason why there was so little allegiance that sometimes put into her folk style and folk career, because it basically was a guitar based thing, a Dylan-esque type of a deal. For those of you in a general, I mean, I hate to use Dylan as an example, but he's the general strum along type of guy who writes your songs. And this is really kind of where she came from. And so it's never was really, it seemed almost as soon to me, as soon as her career started, they were kind of directing her away from that. I mean, even though there were other people there, and I'm surprised she went. Judy Collins actually, as pretty as she was, didn't end up on Dylan's arm at some time. But anyway, let me go to number 12. I'm going to go with 1971's partial live record, Living. I just think the songs in this are not very good. And that's why we kind of do it. I mean, some of these ones she did before she did live. These are versions of like Blue Raincoat and Chelsea Morning, Joan and Me. Four Strong Winds. A version of Four Strong Winds is of Ian Tyson's pretty good. But the song for Judith Opened the Door is, my God, it's shocking. To me, it's shockingly not good, and it's shockingly the voice again in that high register. And it seemed to me like during this period of time, or at least the period when she was at least starting to write some of her songs, and this will qualify for it, there was a tendency when she first started writing to write the songs in this range that was And I don't know if that came from a genuine nervousness or a tendency to do this and want to sing like this. But it obviously was recognized because, when she moved into her pop realm, there's a couple instances where that voice continued. But for the most part, that was kind of done for. And we're still running in kind of some of the end period. Things get a little bit better here with Running for My Life. This is an Eric Martin, or this is actually produced by Judith Collins. I'm sorry. This is the one that she did around this. So this is kind of why this, almost free. I could show you around. I've done enough dying today. There's a lot of songs here written. She does do her own writing in some of these songs, but some of these songs are, you know, show tunes. Version of Pretty Woman, which is, just unbelievable. But and that's not the I'm talking about the Stephen Sondheim. So I mean, by this point, this was more of one of those ones that was directed towards, yes, I'm the great show tune singer, I'm the Barbara Streisand competitor. And she really wasn't. I guess she could have done a tour like that, and probably did that. And it shows you that I've not been heavily on this, but you've got the wedding song that she wrote here on this, and this is the day. And I don't know if it was for her wedding. It sounds like it. And but again, the quality of those tunes is not really up to par, and it sounds really almost like treading water here with this. And she produced it herself, which is kind of baffling to me at this point, because if you're talking about this, it is 1980, and it actually followed up a hard time. So it was actually the year after the one that we just listed at number 15. Let's gonna go to number 11, and we're gonna go in the same general area here, but just a slight measure better. We're talking about Times of Our Lives. There are some redeeming points on this record. The rest of your life isn't bad. Memory's good. Some of the songs here, once again, I think the first side starts out fairly strong, but the second side goes. The version that I like, and I like the fact that she does it, is Sun Sunday, the Anna McGarrigle song, from the two McGarrigle girls, and we might do one on them too, because I've got a bunch of their records. But Angel on My Side is kind of a real letdown. And I remember I was thinking, well, maybe this is a good one. And then the last two songs were her songs, and it just kind of died from there. Before that, it wasn't that bad. I mean, Granddaddy, it was okay. She's kind of trying to straddle some of the line here between pop songs and even dare say like an easy listening. I not really yacht rock or even country rock, but kind of a softer deal. But the song "The Rest of Your Life" is not a bad song for her. Granddaddy's not bad. So this is really, some of these songs I guess aren't bad. And then of course she does the whole memory thing with Andrew Lloyd Webber, which takes off the end of the first side. And I guess that's not bad. So that's probably kind of why I gave it a little bit of a bump higher, and why I put it at 82. I do appreciate some of the my favorite is not the big grandiose show tunes, nor the stripped down, and certainly the made over pop stuff is not my favorite stuff at all of her. But what I like are the orchestrated small quintets, quartets, string quartets, small oboes, things like that. It's almost Nico-ish, and we'll talk about that as it gets going later on. Let's talk about. After that, let's move back, and I talked about this. Let's talk about the very beginning, and look at that hairdo, buddy. Made of Constant Sorrow, and this is when it was just a guitar and Miss Collins singing her anger and her malcontent here. Now, from the beginning, it was done with a spoon of sugar. The back of it is a short but crowded one. Married to Peter Taylor, teacher of English at the University of Connecticut. But the song "Made of Constant Sorrow," of course. The Prickly Bush, Wild Mountain Time was one that I think heard that she played it, not before, not too long ago. But Wars of Germany, Oh Daddy Be Gay, I Know Where I'm Going, John Riley. So there's a certain similarity to the first Dylan record. The second, it's not too far off in time. I mean, we're talking about 1961. This is the very first one. And look at the old Jock Holzman label there. But that's kind of what you get here. And it is absolutely a folk record, and it is unlike anything else that she did. Even the second record, as you're going to find out soon, was not exactly like that. There was some meandering off of that, and it was when the orchestration, some of the good orchestration stuff came, some of my favorite stuff as far as that goes, came in. Certainly solid as it goes. You know, once again, there's some portions in there which she uses that high register, which is not as successful to me as when she uses the lower. And it's almost like when she leans into almost a, hey, this is my hill wailing type of, you know, Seattle or wherever she's from, wailing blues or feeling like when she tries to do that. And I think she's better off not trying to adopt any of that stuff. And I guess as time went on, that's pretty much what happened. But we're going to go to the next record here on the number 9. We're on number 9, which is going to be Golden Apples of the Sun. And now I'm not talking about Morris Subotnick or Morton Subotnick. I'm talking about Judy Collins and the beautiful folk song here, Golden Apples of the Golden Apples. Tell me who I'll marry. 12 Gates to the City, just a wonderful Gary Davis song, but done in a very, hate to say, kind of a pedestrian way. I mean, you know, some of this stuff with the Yates poem with Golden, some of the stuff was to make it a palatable sale, and she was kind of the figure at this. And I guess that was starting to happen. You look at her, you look at the way she looks there now. She looks a little bit different. You still got that short hair though, you know. But Sing Hallelujah here, Crow on the Cradle. Tell Me Who I'll Marry, Sing Hallelujah, Shule Rune. So there's a lot of good stuff here. I think this is clearly a better, but still folk based. You know, the stuff is still folk based here. A lot of the stuff is guitar. You're going to have some arrangements here done with this, with different instruments here, and you're going to hear this. And they talk about her in the folk music circles, but she is, you know, you can tell by the liner notes they're interested in deepening her art or making her seem more deep than she was. And I think it wasn't too long after that she'd run into Mr. Stephen Stills, and then, you know, you'd have a whole new connection with her. But this was 1962. And really a pretty good improvement over the first record. And it's amazing too in sound too, if you listen to the sound of this record and listen to the sound of that record. I don't know what happened between those two, but it's the same sort of thing that happens at some point when you listen to Miles Davis and this and that. At some point there's a vast improvement, and I don't know if that's in technique or if it's a combination of different things, but nevertheless, that was number 9. Number 8, we're going to go with the 1975 big one with the big hit on it. We're talking about Judith. We're talking about the big one with Send in the Clowns. Other than that, orchestrated okay in places. This is, of course, one of the Eric Martin records. The version of the Stones' Salt of the Earth is horrible. I mean, I just think it's completely different the way it is. I just think it's trying to be a little the body to the blood. Some of the first side is not bad. The version of Moon is a Harsh Mistress is pretty good. Legend of the Grape, not bad song for Duke. But then, you know, I've heard Send the Clown so much it's hard. But look at that face, man. That's about as penetrating of a. Her eyes basically hypnotized, as David Letterman used to say. But she does City of New Orleans, which is kind of pedestrian, and you know I like the Arlo. You know the one was it Arlo Guthrie? Who was the guy that did that? Was it John Hammond or it was Arlo Guthrie? But I thought it was a good song. City of it was Goodwin or something, Steve Goodwin. I don't remember, but it was a big hit, and City of New Orleans is her big thing. Let's get now to where we start to get interesting. Now here's one that has some of the most daring and instrumental things she does, where she actually sings with the wings. Whales and Nightingales, Song for David. Farewell to Tar with It. And I think that's where you get the adaptation of the original stuff. And a lot of the stuff she does is a cappella. This record really was a lot of brave in that it tried a lot of different things. Some of the songs, had a golden thread, the Pete Seeger thing. That's okay. But I'm not a real big fan of some of the stuff like the Dylan Time Passes Slowly and the version of Amazing Grace to me is just much. But the singing with the whales, I give her that, and this is a different type of record. It's really interesting to hear because I think by now she's learned how to use her voice, and even in situations like she does with Nightingales and different things, where there seems like there's some improvisation built in the process. Some of those songs are very barren. They start with a very barren thing, and I like that rather than the over the top, just bury yourself like they used to in the orchestrations of like Set in the Clouds or something like that. That wouldn't fall too much later from this. But anyway, this record was from 1970. This is from Whales and Nightingales, and I would recommend people to check that out. Now let's go to 1966, and this is when the Stephen Stills connection came, and this is when we tried for the first time. Elektra said, "Hey, we got to make her a star." So next thing you know, here's your next record. And you're talking about 1966. And, I just think for this, there'd be one before this that we'll talk about that I think's better than this. Some of this is successful, of course. And the parts that are successful are the ones that use the smaller deal here. Pirate Jenny's really nice. I mean, Pirate Jenny, the Brecht Kurt Weill song, really fantastic. She doesn't do bad with Cohen either. I don't really mind her takes on Leonard Cohen because most of those songs, if you will, are in a lower register or not sung in a higher register. It's only where she gets really really much. Now the beautiful Merit Sadi is great. I think It's Gonna Rain Today kind of falls apart a little bit at the end, and certainly does the song Liverpool Lullaby. I don't get. And I don't get the in my life. But interesting enough, orchestrations by Josh Rifkin, who would go on to make in Broadway and go on and on everywhere and go. But the orchestrations were arranged and conducted were Tom Thumb's Blues, hard, which I wasn't crazy for. Hard Love and Loser, for Farina. It's okay. But yeah, the first side of this isn't bad. But again, I think it's too big of a change. It's a complete, well, let's drop the strum and guitar. Let's drop the whole thing. And you're thinking about this is only 4 years before this. I mean, where it was the whole deal. Now she's playing piano. You're hearing she's playing piano. You don't hear it on the record yet, but by the time that last one, Whales and Nightingales were there, she was playing piano on most of the songs where she was doing her original songs, and that really kind of carried on from the 70s onward, which was an interesting change because she at least I don't remember her coming into the game like for a long time being able to play piano at all. Obviously, they would hire studio men and like in my life and stuff, and Steven and such would work with her. Let's go ahead and talk about number 5, the ever huge record. This is probably one of the biggest sellers she ever had, Wildflowers, and this is when she was also Mrs. Stephen Stills, and the haunting eyes in the back with the red hair, reddish hair. But you got Michael from the Mountain, Sisters of Mercy, another Leonard Cohen one, and she does well. But and her big hit of Both Sides Now, which was big. That's No Way to Say Goodbye, Leonard Cohen. So there's a few Leonard Cohen matters here. Uh, Albatross is okay. Skyfell I like a little bit better. But again, and she has, since you ask on here, don't like it. Of course, she does the Jody thing. So, yeah, big hit for her, big sales for her. Well done, well put together, good orchestrations. You hear these things here. You've got Priest arranged by Robert uh, Sylvester and Robert Dennis. Priests. The arrangement of the priests on on the song Priests, the Leonard Cohen song, which is another great song. So my God, she's got 3 or 4 on here. But anyway, great one, Wildflowers. Fantastic. That's number 5. Now we get into what I think is a really, really good stuff. And these are the things that I think any of these records anybody should have. I think they're really solid. And by the cover of this next one, you think to yourself, well, what? You know, this is kind of a weird one. And she does look kind of orange in this picture. Those orange tans. But this is the 5th album, and this is such a great balance between the acoustic guitar and the arrangement starting to come forward. Pack Up Your Sorrows here, so early in the spring, and then she brings in another guitar. So you've got Eric Weisberg playing here, you know, the folk great. Danny Cobb comes in, and the arrangements that this does, it makes a big difference. And again, then you've got John Sebastian coming in on Thirsty Boots on the first side with pretty much a full band. You know, you have a bass player there. So she's been, you know, there's a lot of bass in there. There's a cello in Lord Gregory. She does, of course, the Gordon Lightfoot Early Morning Rain, which I think is strong. And I think she does it really better than any of those two. Richard Farina on dulcimer still, and then isn't it nice a nice thing? But then no drums. But again, wow, to me this is kind of like, okay, well, we're taking it on the road. Let's get a little band of 4 or 5 and let's play like the hoedown. This is like Judy. Bridging all that area and kind of leaving, taking a break from this Hollywood, you know, show tune thing and kind of just gutting one out. You know, this is kind of her, I don't know, I don't want to say it's compared to another artist, but I'm saying this is an album that was just kind of like, looks to me like it was just toughed out and it was just done on, and it really the best of her shines in it, the best vocals, the best material. And I think of the early ones, my vote goes for the 5th album, number 5, and that record came out in 1965. And let's go to the next one, which is the top 3. I'm going to go with the Impeccable, and I think the cover kind of says it all. Bread and Roses. This is a record where there's kind of another level here, and this is the first Eric Martin record, I believe, the Phil Ramone 1976. And this is one where she went with them and she was really into her own deal here, and so she has a whole explanation about Bread and Roses here. And I really think of all her writing, of any of the writing that Judy did, this is probably the best. This is probably the time that it felt most connected. And you know, there's a lot of covers on this record when you think of it, but I do think there's a couple on here that were hers. But again, she hits the out of control, you know, special delivery. Spanish is a loving tongue, of course. That's Dylan's song. But let me look through the rest of these here. Maybe this is the one that she gave in and did not. I don't really see any. I see, of course, the great version of "Come Down in Time," and I think that's of Elton and Bernie. That's an overlooked version, an overlooked cover of this. No, this is one. I'm sorry, I was mistaken when I said this. This is the one where she really avoided writing again, and she stepped back. And this is the selection with this, the arrangement of this with Eric Martin, really just to kind of sit back and kind of let him go with it. Phil Ramone actually helped on it, so maybe it was a combination between that. This was very close to when the Billy Joel hot stuff happened. This is 1976. And, you know, the version of Love Hurts is kind of, you know, not needed, but I don't know if she was listening to, I don't know if she was listening to some of the Graham Parsons or what was happening, but there was a little bit of that solitude coming into this, and I think the whole mood in this really steered it away from the presentation of, hey, here's our singer of the day. And it's, as you can tell, my top stuff really veers away from that. I think the fifth album, I think that this one does too. So there's really only two left, and that's going to leave 1973's very underrated True Stories. This is a song that Stephen Stills was involved with. This one. This is maybe not as commercial as some of the other ones were, but she's got her Fisherman song on this, which is probably one of her best ones. Shay, Song for Martin, I think is a very, very strong. She wrote every song except a Tom Paxton song on the second song. And I think these songs, just with the production of Mark Abramson and Judy Collins, it really fits and it really looks like this. It's no more than it needs. And Steven's involved in it some, and you get these beautiful old pictures in it, which really sets a mood. But I just think, the tone of it and the conciliatory tone is pretty haunting. And I don't know what it is about the production of this record that she captured here, but she really never hinted anywhere else, and it really leaves you, almost in suspense and what's, like an artist, and an artistic intention from a lot of artists, but that she really never had before that. And this is 1973, and I don't know what people were expecting from her in 1973. I guess some of the other stuff had come and gone, and Whales and Nightingales and Living had come out, but this one, bravo! I think it's if you get one, True Stories would be one to get. And let's go with a final one. Dun da da da. I think this record, even though I know it's a Sandy Danny song, this record is the bomb, man. Who knows where the time goes? This is where you get the best arrangements. This record has moments that sound like Nico. It has moments that sound like a Baroque influence. It's just enough going on. When you look at some of the instrumentation of this, you've got Hello, Hurrah, Stephen Stills, Chris Etheridge, Jim Gordon. Listen to this band. Story of Isaac, just organ and harpsichord. Then you've got Michael Melvoin, Chris Etheridge, the same band, Jim Gordon on percussion. Someday Soon by Ian Tyson. Who knows where the time goes? And it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's as beautiful as Sandy's is. I Pity the Poor Immigrant, which is really great. First Boy I Loved from Robin Williamson and the I forget the name of the damn band. You know who I mean. But then you've got Bird on the Wire and Pretty Polly. And let me tell you something, man. There's nothing like Pretty Polly. Pretty Polly is. Anybody should have Pretty Polly. Pretty Polly is an achievement. You got some Van Dyke Parks there on piano with the same band, with Judy playing acoustic guitar. 5 minutes and 47 seconds. It's a traditional thing, but to me, this is the highlight. I don't think it ever got any better than this. For those of you who are wondering where to start, this is where I would recommend to start. This is my favorite one, and I think it's a good balance between the early folk stuff before she was co-opted into the pop stuff. A lot of people like that voice, like that genre of music. I'm not putting it down. The Streisand, the show tunes, the thing. She had great success with it, but to me, not my favorite stuff. So that's it. That's my rundown of the Judy Collins Elektra years, 1961 to 1984. We had 16 of these. I know it's a little bit long here, but I hope you listen back to some of these records, because some of these records, they're all dismissed as, oh, that's Judy Collins, and whether you think of this or kind of like the Beach Boys, all that surf music, and that's it. It's a wrong notion of her. She was an ever-changing, ever-evolving, was she pushed around in these different things? Maybe some of the management, but she certainly had a call in this. And again, like her personal songs towards the end part of this, she was playing piano more than she was playing guitar. Although now live, the tour with Stills and all this, back to the guitar. And Certainly made a ton of records after this 1984 thing. But I think the bulk of her success happened before her contract ran out in Elektra. But try out Judy Collins, please. Don't malign Judy Collins. And I will have the Joni Mitchell and one of the things we should have with this thing. Don't worry about it, guys. I'm just going out of order. I know you guys can take it. That's why I'm doing it. Anyway, thank you forever. Please hit that like button. Let's try to hit that. Let's try to get something going with that. I appreciate you always being here for us, man, and subscribe. And pretty soon we'll have some new music for you, man. I'm going to go down and send the masters off finally today. So we got it back. We got it mastered, and it sounds just brilliant. So sounds very good. So, we'll fill you guys in on that as time goes too. And I knew there's going to be a delay in this. So hell, the thing might be out by the time this goes. But anyway, that's it. Judy Collins. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.